Let's talk now about the lasting influence of a very different type of Jewish religious leader, Lord Jonathan Sacks, the former Chief Rabbi of the UK and Commonwealth, who passed away 3 years ago. A towering intellect and dynamic community leader, Rabbi Sacks creatively drew on traditional Jewish sources to address thorny issues of contemporary morality. A nonprofit initiative called the Rabbi Sacks Legacy has brought to Jerusalem a group of top Jewish educators and communal leaders from North America, the UK, South Africa, and Australia for a week-long seminar to delve into Rabbi Sacks's teachings and to use them to promulgate them in their own communities through innovative programming. Well, joining us now for more is Rabbi Daniel Epstein, Rabbi of the Western Marble Arch Synagogue in London's West End, and he speaks to us from that conference in Jerusalem. And Rabbi Epstein, maybe let's start. Certainly, British Jews know about Rabbi Sacks, and certainly Jewish Orthodox rabbis and educators. But maybe for the more general Jewish public, talk about who he was and his influence.
Well, thank you very much, Khaled. Good afternoon. It's lovely to talk to you. An extraordinary man who was both a community rabbi, pulpit rabbi, and then in 1991 until 2013 was the chief rabbi of Great Britain and the Commonwealth. During that time and before that and even after that, he wrote an extraordinary number of books, around 44, I think, books that he wrote altogether, various articles, and he got known a lot more during his broadcast media. He was very, very sought after at conferences, at various different retreats, and his approach to style and to Torah and to engage with the world with his Torah ideas was become very, very attractive across the world, and translations into multiple language, upwards of 9, 10 languages through the Maggid press of Koren has allowed him access also into various people's lives, and they're quite surprised by, nevertheless, being an Orthodox rabbi, having a tremendously broad vision and message for the world about Judaism engaged with a fully integrated society.
Right. So now tell us about the Rabbi Sacks Legacy Initiative and that specific conference or seminar you were at, the Sacks Scholars in Jerusalem.
Yes, well, actually, he passed away in November 2020, and it was a devastating loss at just 72 years old. And we were all expecting so many more years to have him around to share his ideas and thoughts. And with his passing, there was a tremendous sense of a palpable loss across not just the Jewish community, but especially in the UK, across the UK community, a really strong voice, a faith voice in the public space. And the idea was that the Sacks Legacy Foundation, trustees who'd come together, who were originally helping him and added with others as well, to try and find a place where we could have a retreat, somewhere to bring 26, which it turns out to be, leaders, educators, rabbis, rebbitzins, and broad people involved in the community to talk about his ideas, develop them, the studies and the ideas that he had already espoused, and to try and think about ways to extend his legacy further and wider, both on the ideas that he had and new ideas inspired by his approach to the community, his approach to society, his approach to the broad message that Judaism should be bringing to the wider world. And so we're here for a few days in Jerusalem, and it is an extraordinary place. We're developing ideas, we're hearing from experts, we're sharing thoughts, we're meeting our own people who we don't get a chance to meet in this few days of a real oasis in time and space to allow us to develop and think of ideas. Has really been quite extraordinary. It's just been 24 hours of this 5-day retreat, and we're already feeling overwhelmed with ideas and excited about the future. Right. Now,
Lord Rabbi Sacks had a gift of transferring or communicating traditional Judaism to in many different circles, to people who were Orthodox or the non-Orthodox community. You know, we say that Torah comes from Jerusalem, out of Jerusalem, but what do you think he could contribute to not just Jewish communities in the diaspora, of which he was a part of, but even here in Israel, where religion sometimes, frankly, becomes something of a divisive issue?
I think that the fresh approach that he had to Judaism being a universal language for running society is something you don't normally hear in Israel. A lot of times, religion has been politicized. So there's a sense you can't have a religious conversation without some sort of political connotation. And many of the ideas he was espousing were about big society, the idea of love and drawing ideas out of the Torah itself. And I think this approach is incredibly fresh. I know that, for example, just last year, I think a place like Steinmatsky was selling almost 100,000 volumes of his translated works. There's a thirst for the type of approach that he had, which was an unapologetic pride in Judaism, which doesn't necessarily need to be linked to politicization or even solutions by one party or another. It was non-partisan. It was a really genuine attempt to try to bridge a gap. And when we talk about the gap sometimes that is building between Israeli society and the diaspora Jewish society, especially when it comes to Israel, his voice is a breath of fresh air, and it brings a chance to reinvigorate a conversation and possibly within his writings, maybe some solutions for the way ahead.
All right. Well, as you said, Rabbi Sacks was really sort of still in his prime and still working, and his words and his messages are clearly still being communicated out there in the Jewish world. Rabbi Daniel Epstein, thank you for joining us on I-24 News.
Thank you very much. And the Sacks Scholars first cohort here, we're delighted to be here, and I think you'll be the first of many.